my body's been resilient through it all. My health has been resilient. My mindset has been resilient. I know that I'm made for something more, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be here.
Welcome to the Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast, where we focus on health and wellness and overcoming all types of addictions. You're in the right place if you're a mom, dad, sibling, or caregiver who has a loved one who is or was struggling with an eating disorder or any other kind of addiction. In a time where everything seems heavy, I'm here to bring you a very real, yet lighthearted take on what the heck we're all supposed to do with our lives while we care for our loved ones who are struggling. One thing holds true throughout it all. You can't juggle the chaos without smiling. At least a little bit. Well, welcome to another episode of my podcast. This is Moira Gorski. I'm so glad that you came back. Now, this is Eating Disorder Awareness Week. This is also a 2-year anniversary to starting this podcast. And I am honored to bring to you today a very special guest. The very special guest is my daughter. And if you have listened to my podcast, I thank you for that. And you've heard about my daughter. You've heard about the impact of her eating disorder in my life. You've heard wonderful stories from others who have recovered. And I am blessed to have my daughter back at home with me. And I asked her today if she might want to come on and talk a little bit and share a little bit. And she said yes. So she's here today to just share a little bit, because as I mention all the time on my podcast, her story is not mine to tell. My story of being a mother and a caregiver through this journey and what I've learned through my own journey of life and my own eating disorder, that's my story to tell. But I've left the story of Anna to Anna. So welcome, Anna Gorski, to my podcast today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So I start all my guest interviews with sharing your story. But what I tell my guests to is, and you've heard it, that just share, perhaps parts of your journey that you feel is your story that's beneficial, to share today as we get started.
All right. Well, my story my struggle started about 7 years ago, and it's been an on and off, in and out of treatment battle, home, away, and this past year was a full year away from home. It was definitely tough, and there was lots of tears, and there's a lot of times that I wanted to give up, and I also know that I knew that that wasn't an option, because I had told myself it wasn't an option anymore. A lot of it was going back to the basics, just getting the
Getting back to the basics.
Back to the basics. So just like food, water, getting the nutrition back in, getting a lot of sleep, because the body needs a lot of sleep when we've deprived it for so long or been manipulating it or pushing it really hard. And so a lot of rest and rejuvenation in that way. And then also I added in connection, because throughout all of this, I have met such incredible people who have offered me so much compassion, so much empathy, and just a lot of humor too, to help just ease the stress and anxiety that is so prevalent within the journey and the struggle. So just really, really grateful for all of those individuals out there. And out of all the treatment, that's the most consistent thing through every single place, going back to the basics.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. And, we've had lots of ups and downs with our relationship. I'm blessed to, again, say that I've got my daughter back, and we're learning a new way to have a relationship, if you will. And so what do you have to say about that? Or how do you feel like, the eating disorder has impacted our relationship, or what's been the most difficult thing about that?
Well, one of the most difficult things is the eating disorder robbed me of my joy, sanity, peace, and my passion and just zest and drive for life. And how that relates to my relationship with my mom is I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to do my eating disorder, and that was it. I didn't want to watch a movie. I didn't want to bake. I didn't want to sit down and talk. I didn't want to have lunch out. I didn't want any of that. And so that was the start of it, and then before you know it, I didn't even want to be around people. So everything just ticked me off, and she tried so hard to try and pull me out of the depths of my disorder, and it just didn't work because I was so deep in. And just I know, looking back at all the times that we either had a screaming match or, silence, or just trying to force me to do things, or me just being defiant, out of all of it was love. And there was never a moment of time that I didn't think that my mom wanted the best for me. It's just the eating disorder is so strong and so powerful. And my therapist used to tell us that we have to respect the disease, in the sense that the disease is powerful, it's insidious, and it's persistent. And through and through it all, we can try everything. But once you're at a horrible place physically, your mentality goes down. And like I said, all I wanted was the disorder, and that was it. I didn't want family time. I didn't want fun time with my mom. I didn't want to go shopping. I wanted nothing to do with clothes, nothing to do with my body. But that's something that I just want to share a little. When we went shopping the other week, and I had to get some new clothes that actually fit me, and it was a difficult time, but my mom being there beside me made me feel like it was okay to be in a woman's body, and that is something that I'm really working hard to accept. So just having her there next to me made it all a lot easier, and I'm just really grateful for that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a fun day going shopping, and I missed those times. And again, I've shared on this podcast many times that that you lose your child, and obviously I didn't, Anna wasn't here for part of the time, so she isn't physically here. I lost her physically like that. But, they're just, like she said, she's disconnected. And, it's something that, again, I've talked about on this podcast, is kind of that grieving of a life with your child that you wish you had. And I certainly have gone through that, and knowing that, looking back on this and knowing that there's only so much I can do. And again, like you said, you didn't want any of it. So it had nothing to do with me or your dad or your siblings or your friends. It's like you just didn't. The eating disorder just takes over as the main priority in your life, and really cuts, and it wants you to be secluded and, cut everybody else out. And again, that's what I encourage people to do. And even when I had a friend reach out to me yesterday whose daughter got a call from her friend who said she's coming home from college and she needs to get help for her eating disorder. She goes, we don't know what to do. And I said, the first and foremost thing you can do is love her, and just say, what, good job for you for getting the help that you need, and just love her where she's at. I know that you've shared a little bit, again, what you've learned, and you've been at lots of different treatment places. I always wondered, maybe you could shed light on this. Your dad and I talked about this a few times, that sometimes, the treatment places are helpful, but we also felt like sometimes they taught you new tricks, or they taught you because you were around other people that had different types of behaviors. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it really, the eating disorder is a competitive disease in and of itself. And so when you get around other people who also have eating disorders, the disorders in us like to compete with each other. So, oh, she's thinner. Oh, she's eating less than me. Her meal plan's smaller, all these horrible things that we think. But you do see people, I remember my very first treatment, it was like, who could cut up the hard-boiled egg into the smallest pieces? Everyone looking around the table, who could eat the slowest? Who could do this? Who could do that? Who was exercising in their room? Who wasn't? Like, all of these things that it was like, just the eating disorder was still trying to thrive and survive within a treatment center where the eating disorder is trying to be exterminated. So it's just very, very tricky way to also see people for people instead of seeing people's diseases. Because you meet Susan and you think, oh, Susan, she must be a nice lady, but she's got this behavior and that behavior and other behavior. And it's not that you don't love her despite that. It's so hard to see her for anything other than those things when people are so deep in their eating disorder. So yeah, sometimes it is like, oh, I never really ever thought of doing X, Y, or Z with food or with my clothes or with exercise or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's a new thing I could do. Maybe that can keep me safe. Maybe that can keep me protected. Maybe that can keep me in the disorder. It's just a cycle of insanity because we're not really doing anything different. And so we're going to continue to be in the disorder. But something really, really prevalent that I did learn and that I want to express to everyone who listens to this is an eating disorder is not a skinny, privileged white girl disorder. People of all body sizes and shapes, colors, men, women, transgender, it doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate against one kind of culture or gender or anything. It's everyone and anything in between. You know, I've been with people who identify as transgender. I've been with women, men. I've been with young people, old people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And also, you don't have to be skinny or underweight to have an eating disorder either, or to be obese and overweight. It's not a weight disorder. It's not a weight disease. That is not what is about. It is about a lot deeper rooted things that food just becomes the way that we express the pain that we're feeling.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. Thank you for saying that. You said it so very well. And again, somebody else I was speaking with earlier, that's when she was sharing, I'm going to interview her soon for this. She talked about that as she grew up. She just didn't feel like she was seen. She was an identical twin. There was all this comparison with her twin, and her twin seemed to get all of the attention. And she didn't seem to be seen. And that was part of what kind of catapulted her into. But she also said her faith really brought her through, and she felt like she was finally seen by God, and that love from God, seeing her for who she was, she come to know that never went away. And that was the start of her healing. What would you say that the things that keep you going these days? Let's go there.
Things that keep me going these days, I would say, are definitely the things that I'm starting to do. It's silly little things, but dog walk and dog sit and bake and sell my baked goods and dance around my house to music. Things that make me feel good is what keeps me going. And also the fact that my body's been resilient through it all. My health has been resilient. My mindset has been resilient. I know that I'm made for something more, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here to this day to be able to speak about it, because, you know, the disease really turned my life upside down. And just knowing that there's others struggling out there really keeps me going, because I want to be a help to them, and I want to show them that there's a life worth living out there for each and every one of us. I've just lost way too many friends to this disease, and, you know, this upcoming weekend with the Alliance for Eating Disorders, it's Not One More weekend. It's called Not One More. And it's a weekend where they do 16 hours of support groups, and they do all these different things to raise awareness and raise support and promote so much positivity around the eating disorder and getting help and recovering and all those kinds of things, because it really is, it's either you recover or you probably will die. It's really scary, and we all would like to deny it and say, oh, it's not that bad, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not sick enough, I'm not this enough, that enough. But you know, you don't think about when you're going to the bathroom, I don't have to go enough, you know? Or you don't think about when you, like, just different things. When, you know, you don't think about, oh, my shirt isn't blue enough, my pants aren't white enough, or there's not enough buttons on my pants. I mean, we just don't think about those kinds of things. And so we critique our bodies in such a way that we don't even critique other things, you know? Like, we love our dogs. We don't care if they're fat, skinny, medium size. If they eat all their dinner, they eat nothing. I mean, come on, we just love them because we love them.
Yeah, I think that's really good. You know, just finding things that bring you joy, you know, and I don't think that it's little, they're little things. I mean, I've spoken to so many people recently, they're like, oh, my cousin is a dog walker and that's her main thing, and she's making bank and and really loves it. And so I don't think those are little things, but I think, like what you said, this disorder has taken so much of your life, and sometimes as a mom, and perhaps who's listening could understand this or think this, that like we just want it to be like, oh, let's get back to normal. Well, the fact is, you can't just like get back to normal, like snap your fingers and like, okay, now I'm going to go to school, get a job, do all the things that a 22-year-old would be. You've been in treatment, and like, again, this disorder has taken so much, and what did you say, turned it upside down. It takes a while to right the ship and to get it, to continue to get it stronger and stuff like that. So I think you're doing a great job, and
Thank you.
Happy to support you here. And you'll see, I'll put some links in the show notes for the Alliance this weekend. It's a wonderful organization, a nonprofit organization that raises funds and awareness for eating disorders, and that's what this weekend, they've got all kinds of things going on this weekend, like Anna said. If you could go back and tell that 15-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl who was feeling, sad and a little less than enough and seen, like, what would you say to that girl today, if you could? Or
That's a good question. I think I would tell her I would tell her that there are people out there who love her, and just because it was a rough patch didn't mean that it was going to last forever. And really, honestly, I would tell her to ask for help, to get help, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure about anything. I didn't know. I became more aware of my body and more aware of food, but I didn't know really what was the right amount. There's not a right amount, but what was the right amount of food to eat in a day, and the macro and micronutrients and things like that. I just didn't know. And so I should have just asked more questions. And I really wish that I would have wrote it out, and I would have just told myself that friends come and go, and that family lasts forever, and they're there to love you, and they aren't the enemies. And to just know that, honestly, just that nothing lasts forever, and that happiness could possibly be right around the corner.
Yeah, that's good. The last 2 years has not been kind to many of us, and taught us many things, that good and bad, and what we can control and what we can't control. And my heart breaks, because there are so many that mental health disorders and have really, really increased in the last couple of years. So just you saying, just ask for help. It's please. And if we've seen it, right? Like, if the first therapist doesn't really work for you, then go find another therapist. There are different people. If you can't afford therapy, there are support groups. There are online support groups. There are in-person support groups. There are so many people there that are willing to help, and it takes you asking for help. And I just referenced something you said earlier, like, you want to continue to share your story and help those that are out there that are struggling. And I think we've seen that on this podcast. So many of my guests who have gone through their own journey, they've gone on to help others, because that's what their desire is. They've come through hell, and they want to help those that are going through that, because they can empathize with them and all that. So I commend you for that. And I know that your story will continue on, and you'll be able to help many others as you continue to share. Any last words that you'd like to share before we close up?
No, just like I said, everyone who's listening, you are loved. And please, if you're struggling, ask for help, reach out, do anything. I mean, anything helps to help yourself. And you're made for more than a job, more than something that defines you. You're made for more. Yeah, just that you're loved, and you were put on this earth for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I wrap this up and closes today, again, if you've listened to my podcast, I have said a couple of times, and I've also said in my journal and in my prayers, that I hoped that someday, I knew someday my daughter would join me on the podcast. I didn't know when that would be, and I'm just so honored that you joined me today. And I'm glad that you're here, because I know that there are been plenty of days that you weren't sure you did want to be here on this earth, and because that eating disorder, the terrorist, as I call it, or is that what I call it? Negotiating with the terrorist, that we were negotiating with the terrorist, and a terrorist was taking my daughter's life. And I'm blessed to have you as a daughter, and I'm blessed to have you here sitting next to me. And I know that I agree with you. You're made for more. There's a huge, bright future ahead of you, and want you to continue to know that you're loved by me, loved by so many, loved by God who put you on this earth. So thank you, everybody, for listening today. I certainly do appreciate it. Again, it's a beautiful day for me, even though it's raining here. It's a beautiful day when I can invite my daughter to join me here. So thanks for listening. Again, look at the show notes if you do want to join any of the support groups or learn more about how you can learn more about eating disorders, and also just learn how to help others that are struggling, or if you're one that's struggling, how you can help yourself. So thanks again for listening, for 2 years of support. I'm just humbled by the support, and I cannot thank you enough for continuing to listen, to share these podcasts with others, and to know that life is worth living, and there is always hope. So have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Share it with others, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I've got a tribe over on Facebook, so head over there and search for Juggling the Chaos of Recovery Podcast Tribe. And do you know somebody who has a story to share, a story of recovery and hope? Please let me know, as I'd love to feature them as a guest on one of these next upcoming podcasts. And perhaps you're looking for a community of like-minded, collaborative, and supportive people who cheer each other on as we strive to improve our lives. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, schedule some time with me. You'll find the links in the show notes. Let's talk, and let me help you find your way. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it.